Okay, this is the next sum. So we have to find again the revenue deficit, fiscal deficit, and primary deficit. Okay. So number one, we will find revenue deficit. Revenue deficit equals to revenue expenditure minus revenue receipts minus revenue receipts. Okay, revenue expenditure minus revenue receipts. So in this question, revenue expenditure is given, but revenue receipts is not given. Okay, instead revenue, the part of revenue receipts is given. So where these revenue receipts we got, tax revenue and non-tax revenue. These are the two parts, tax revenue and non-tax revenue. In our previous class we have discussed that revenue receipts, that means the revenue receipts parts government collects from tax revenue and non-tax revenue. So we can write revenue expenditure minus tax revenue plus non-tax revenue. This is the total. If it add this tax revenue and non-tax revenue, then you get the revenue receipts. Okay, so our actual formula is revenue expenditure minus revenue receipts. So revenue expenditure, the value is given, revenue receipts from value is not given, but the part of revenue receipt is given. That means tax revenue and non-tax revenue, because tax revenue and non-tax revenue is a part of revenue receipts. Okay, so we can write tax revenue plus non-tax revenue. So revenue expenditure is how much? Revenue expenditure is 80 minus tax revenue is how much? 47 plus non-tax revenue is how much? 10. All are in crores. So it is 80 minus 57, or it is 23 crores. Okay, this is the revenue receipts. Next, revenue deficit. Next is fiscal deficit. Fiscal deficit. So fiscal deficit means, fiscal deficit, what we write? Fiscal total expenditure minus total receipts other than borrowings, or net of borrowings. So on here nothing is given here about the total expenditure and total expenditure and total receipts. Nothing is given here, but one thing is given here, that is borrowings. One thing is given here, that is borrowings, because we know that fiscal deficit means borrowings. So we put the values here. Borrowings is how much? 32 crores. Okay, and the last is primary deficit. What is primary deficit? Primary deficit means fiscal deficit minus interest payment So what is fiscal deficit? Fiscal deficit is already we have find 32, and interest payment is how much? How much interest payment is given here? 20 crore. That means how much it is? 12 crores. Okay, so in this way we will find revenue deficit, capital deficit, revenue deficit, fiscal deficit, and primary deficit. Okay, I will give you some sums to practice, so that you can practice at home. Okay, and if there is any problem regarding how to solve these sums, then you ask me. Okay, you ask me, and I will try to solve your query. Okay, but in this way, the sums that I have discussed in my videos, in this way we will solve it. You will practice this type of sums, okay, in your exercise. If you face any problem, you ask me.